Well, tonight, Jack Hillzy has kindly come back to discuss the photographs and the footage that we were unable to show due to technical problems on the live stream the previous night. So as people can see, the photographs are up. And Jack, will you just tell us what we're looking at here, please, on the first one?
Yeah, this is the area of Marika, the Prior, or the beach as they're called. As you can see, they got the lagoons in the distance. The town of Marika is on the east. We're looking directly east here, okay. Just the other side of Rio de Janeiro. As you can see, the mountain range, you've got a couple of mountains in the foreground, and then the main mountain range is in the background, ranging from 200 plus meters up to 350, 360 meters, which is about just over 1,000 feet.
Right, okay. And
the actual event took place in between these two mountains in the foreground and the mountains in the background, which you can't actually see because of the ones in the foreground. So that's the area, and that's what it looks like. It looks quite densely populated, but it isn't really. And when you get inland, it just becomes sparsely populated. Next one, please, Les, unless you have anything to say.
No, I think that's explained it perfectly, Jack. Thank you.
Next one, Les, please. So this is in the hills and the mountains to the east of where we live, looking west. So this was taken a year or plus before the event took place. And this is the kind of area it was happening in, it was taking place in. Sparsely populated, nobody for miles and miles, the odd small holding. As you can see, vegetation, tree canopy, not tall trees, not big trees, but very, very sparsely populated. So, a lot could go, Brazil's one of those places what I call has big sky, and it has huge expanses of sky. And this is one of those locations. So next one, please, Les. So this is our apartment. This is from the balcony, and this is where we saw the events take place. So looking at the first arrow and the lower arrow on the left-hand side was where I saw, looking in the bedroom, out of the bedroom window, I saw a very, very bright strobe, but a very quick strobe, not a pulsating strobe. It was very, very quick. Quicker than and intense, and I thought that's unusual. So I then came onto the balcony. It then stopped, and then nothing for a little while. So I just stopped watching, just seeing what was happening, and then all of a sudden, the lights within the first video started appearing, and then went on. No more. I've got the video is 50 seconds long, and then they started to peter out, and then they just went. So the other two locations are the first sighting and the second sighting. So there was definitely a movement. They weren't exactly in the same place. One was higher than the other, so it wasn't the same. It could have been, would have been the same object, but it had moved.
And I think what's good about seeing the daylight shots for myself and for anybody viewing this is that we're in no doubt that the object was in the air, or the lights were in the air, which is good, Jack, that you've got this background information, because and rightly so, people are always going to say, well, we're just looking at a dark sky and lights, but this is answering a lot of questions.
That's why I took it, and then you can see the mast, the telecoms mast on the left-hand side, which has the light on, that you can see in the photograph as well. That mountain behind the trees is about 4.5 to 5 miles away, and it is marked as about 350 meters, so over 1,000 feet, that particular mountain. And what you can't see is that range goes all the way behind the other complex and goes down and inland. So next one, please, Liz. So this is a closer image where you can see the second sighting and the third sighting. I say the elevation ranges, and if you can see now, there is another mountain in the very, very distance. I would think the event took place between us and that mountain. It wasn't that far. So there's a town is approximately 17 mile as the crow flies in that way, in that direction. So it's a northeasterly direction. And like I said earlier, we're surrounded by multiple airfields, busy airports, international airports, domestic airports, and the one in town that has flights coming over us all the time, and not even in a set pathway. They vary their approaches coming over the top of us.
And as we've spoke previously, Jack, with your experience in the RAF and by observing from those points, what you saw, and I've seen the footage, was nothing to do with aircraft traffic, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, no. I would agree. I would agree totally. What I will reiterate, I quite clearly say in the video that I can hear explosions when quite clearly I can't. But that was just, and I say, oh, it's a military exercise. It's just me putting a label on something I really don't understand.
And do you know, Les, excuse me, do you know, Jack, when I looked at the footage, you actually kind of feel there's an explosion taking place. And I realised that there's probably people watching this thinking, well, come on, let's get to footage. But this background information is important because there's such a ferocity in the explosions of light that are taking place. That's what it feels like. So I think that's probably why you're labelled, just saying you can, as part of the reason.
And like I said the other day, there is a thing called a NOTAMS, a Notice to Airmen, which is operated internationally, and people, if they are particularly military exercising in a certain area, they will put a NOTAMS in for any flyers in the area. Doesn't matter what time, day or night. Do not fly in this area because we are training, and it'll give you a height, a ceiling height, and a minimum ceiling height. And we are operating in this area from this day to this day, or this hour to this hour. And there was none. There was certainly none in the official NOTAMS webpage, because anybody can see it. It's public knowledge, because it has to be. And however, there was a helicopter movement a few days before, and that was around the airport. But this night there was nothing, and certainly no helicopter. When you look at the footage, you realise if it's a helicopter, there was several helicopters there, and they were flying on top of each other.
Yeah.
So there would have been a boatload of noise.
Well, I think that's going to become self-explanatory shortly.
Yeah. And as I say, it happened just after midnight on the 18th going into the 19th of January last year. Of whatever that thing was. And the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So there wasn't a set pattern to that.
Do you know, Jack, it almost looks, looking at the photograph, I know they're vague. They're not vague, but, that we're not got crisp detail. But it almost looks like there's a discernible shape, black shape, around that white light. And,
like kind of a triangle.
Yeah, and if you go back to, I mean, I don't know if you want to, but if you go back to the other still, I know you said it were cloud cover, and I've got to, you were there, I wasn't, but it almost looks like there's a discernible shape underneath the light, which, it's this pareidolia. You know what I mean? People, we can see things in everything, can't we? But I don't want to dwell too much on that. It would just other people.
No, I see where you're coming from. But anybody has to admit that is some bright strobe, without a doubt. Next one, then, please, Les. So these here are just still images taken from throughout the video, showing different formations of lights They were moving within themselves all the time, but they didn't drop any lower than the lowest light, if you see what I mean. They didn't drop to Earth.
That one looks like it's probably slightly higher. I mean, you've looked at this more than me, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think they're all they're pretty much they're all the same height. I think I might have just moved slightly because this is taken over the course of the 3-minute video. This one.
Yeah.
Next one, Les. So as you say, I'm zooming further in. It can't concern anything. It's just a series of lights. Next one, Les. Again, another one. Next one, Les. So this one has always intrigued me because I don't know about you guys, but the second one on the right is, to me, seems like a square.
Yeah.
That wispy thing at the bottom could it be construed as a flare dropping? No, because flares are not square and they don't hang in the air like they hang in the air. But I don't know about you, but can you, if you go from the top light to the wispy thing, is there a straight line there?
There almost is a straight line, Jack. Yes, but jumping to the flares again. I mean, we bow to your judgment because you're the well, let's say you've experienced with the flares, but they're not illuminating enough area to be flares.
That's right. The whole idea of flares, well, you've got illumination flares and you've got flares to prevent aircraft attacking other aircraft. So you have different purposes of flares. However, all flares fall to Earth from gravity. So, but these never do.
And have you well, obviously you've noticed, but the lights are also different shapes.
Yeah, they're all different shapes. We've
got a square one on the right-hand side, second from top.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know that could be pixelation, people, but if it were pixelation, why aren't we seeing a square one or the makings of a square one on the large circular one?
Yeah, see again, if it was, again, can we rule out pixelation? Because it is, to me, it looks like a square. Quite clearly, it has straight edges.
I think so, Jack, and I think you're right. And what we need to say, and I don't know whether Les has said this or anyone, but it's taken from 4K footage.
Yes, it's taken from.
So it's not somewhat like 720p or 620p lines. It's and what's interesting as well is all the lights thrown to the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Do you know how does that work?
I don't know. I mean, this is I think was one of our problems on Friday night was it was 4K. It's 4K video footage. So as you say, it's not 720 made up. It's actually 4K through the Samsung S10, which has a good camera. Obviously, there's better cameras out there. DSLR would have been better, or perhaps it wouldn't have been. I don't know because of the light.
But at the end of the day, Jack, you took advantage with the phone and the equipment that you'd got, and you got this footage, and that's what we've got to work with, and that's good enough.
Well, Barbara did her. She has an Apple Apple 7, and her footage doesn't even come close to this one.
Okay,
that's why we didn't show it. It's just because she does make a remark about her phone. Okay. Next one, please, Les. As you can see, the formation's changed. The lights have clustered together at the top, and now there's two on the right-hand side of the structure, or whatever it is. I say structure out of nothing else to say. Again, nothing discernible other than the lights in the sky.
Well, having said that, I mean, I don't mean it's a triangular craft, but the top bunch of lights,
the top bunch of lights do look like a triangle.
They're in a triangle, and it probably just the way they're tilted, but the light's still on the left-hand side. The intensity.
Yeah. Next one, please, Les. Again, it changed again. They were changing all the time. They were constantly changing. you know, I'd love somebody to tell me, Jack, it was just blah de blah, because I don't know. I would like to actually bring a conclusion to it with a rational explanation, but I can't. And if somebody can, please give it to me, because it's not fireworks. You wouldn't want to be putting fireworks up in a forested area like that anyway.
Well, be careful what you wish for, Jack, because there's plenty of experts out there that just they think of explanations just because they want to think of an explanation.
Yes, I understand that.
I'm only joking. Bit of tongue in cheek there, mate.
Yeah. Next one, please, Les. Again, this is further back, but as you can see, they have changed. What I tried to do is give a context of how they were. So I kept zooming in, zooming out, so you would see the trees in the foreground, just to see how things were. Next one, please. So there's one of the strobes. Yep. As you can see, it's completely changed position. I know I'm not zoomed in as close as I was to the other one, but that's not as bright as the very top one.
No.
The top one of all of them was the brightest. But you can see quite clearly, very bright, intense light. Next one, please, Les. Another one. So that's two separate frames. That is a different strobe to the one I just showed you.
Yeah.
So as you can see, just go back one again, Les. Forward again. So very close, but they weren't the same light. That was two separate strobes. Next one, please. Strobe's gone. As you say, they're starting to taper off a bit. They're starting to lose some of them. And again, Les.
Whatever it is appears to be stationary, pretty much, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, judge by the top of that tree, Paul. It never gets any lower than the top of that tree, and it never seems to get any higher. So you say there's another one. I think I've just caught that as it's about to strobe to its intensity. Next one. That's another one. Next one. Gone. 122. Next one, Les. 23.
I think that's a picture because it's putting it into context. We can actually see the trees. Yeah. Just the outline of them. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So I think this is the last still I've got of that second video clip. And the next two stills after that are, so them lights just go.
Yeah.
And then the strobe starts at the bottom, down the bottom right, left-hand corner where I saw the first one. Again, it wasn't as intense as the first one, but it was still bright, strobing away.
Okay.
And I took a couple of pictures of that. One of them, you see a single light, and in the other one, there's two lights side by side. So if we can have the next slide, Les, please. So that's the single light.
Yeah.
And that was strobing all the time. That's just a still from it. And if you do the last one, Les, there's actually two lights there.
Yeah, obviously the picture's a good distance away, but yeah. I still think it's good, Jack, because we're getting an idea that there's nothing but sky behind it.
Yeah. So as you can see, they've dropped considerably. That's about the same area as they first appeared, and then I never saw any more until I went to bed about 1:30, 2 o'clock. They didn't come anymore. And yeah, as you know, Paul, I'm up with the crack of dawn every morning, and I go and I sit on my hammock, and I never saw anything the rest of of our time out there.
No.
Haven't been, we were there another fortnight or so, but we haven't been back since because of COVID. So, but next time I'll have my new camera, so that should be better.
Now we're going to come to the actual video, Jack, so you can talk us through this if that's possible, please.
Yeah, of course. This one we're about to see is the very first 50-second clip, which you can't really see much other than the lights. As you can see, I'm zooming in. Kind of a triangle at the bottom with a one above.
It's like a domino.
Yeah, like a domino. You see, not a lot to be said, not a lot to see in that first clip. More lights appearing in the top. Keep coming on, going off.
There's a lot to see, Jack. It's interesting.
Yeah, more random than the second clip. To be honest, the first clip is definitely random. It is in a slightly different piece of sky, and then they just literally faded out. It was a bit longer than 50 seconds, but not a great deal longer.
And if we assume that we don't know, obviously we're just stabbing in dark here, that there's something structured behind these lights, who's to say that is not just on its side towards the 2 o'clock, and the next clip of footage, it's upright.
It's changed position, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, like if it was somebody doing something, you wouldn't do it for 50 seconds or such a short period as a minute, would you?
The point is that these lights are changing
all the time,
snapping into different positions, and obviously that picture with the prior daylight pictures that you've shown us, it's in the air. That what is airborne that manoeuvres and moves like that? Interesting is all we can say. We realise that, but it's nevertheless that's exactly what it is.
And making no sound, of course.
Yeah.
And because of the number of lights, so if if it was helicopters, it would have to be several helicopters.
Yeah.
Are you seeing what I mean?
But we see navigation lights, Jack, in a regular pattern. You know that better than me. There's nothing there, is there?
Well, see, military can do away with navigation lights if under certain circumstances. However, if you're going to get rid of your navigation lights, why would you then illuminate yourself?
Exactly. And why would you would you fly helicopters in such close proximity to each other?
No, you wouldn't at all. Not in the dark. No, it would be suicide. So, so that's the first clip. Say very short, and then it just faded out, and then there was nothing for several minutes, and then if you can play clip the next one, Les, please. A lot more lights in more of a vertical pattern now. As you can see, as you said, whatever it may have changed the position. So like I said, I zoom out to give you a perspective of where it is in the sky, zoom back in all the time, just to try. There was no strobes for quite a couple of minutes, or a minute and a half, before it started doing any strobing. There's your first strobe.
Yeah. But all the time, that top and bottom lights have remained pretty much constant.
That's very true, very true. And more appearing all the time.
Yeah.
No one flashing.
It's an amazing thing to see, because I really haven't got a clue. That was another strobe. We're losing it's a bit blocky.
But you've zoomed in a bit, haven't you? But I mean, there were two lights there. and we've lost the top and the bottom light, or just one of them's the lights appeared at the side.
Yeah.
You feel sure that other people must have seen this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you said it's a sparsely populated area, but
people. Yeah. They in the original footage, there is different colours there. There's a red. You can slightly see it red, but you can see the red better in the 4K footage.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame, but in a way, it also has its advantages, because we can clearly see that those lights are stationary. The bottom one is constant.
I mean, as you see, they don't drop in height at all. Well, they do drop in height within themselves.
I was going to say between the lights, they're moving out.
You can actually see them physically moving in the video.
What did you come away with thinking, Jack? Did you think that there's a structure to this, or did you just think these are unusual lights?
No, I felt that there was a structure behind it.
Yeah,
I really did. I think what made me think that more than anything was the intensity of the strobes. Really, because to have a strobe that bright would need a structure to be on it. I would think that was my sort of rationale behind that.
Yeah.
Whether that makes sense, I don't really know.
Okay. I think there were another light to the sort of 5 o'clock position.
Yeah, there is. If you watch it in 4K, there is a number of other lights
that appear.
Yeah. And go off again, but not to the quite bright, obviously, but not part of this same sequence.
We got one of the strobes, I think, a few frames ago, and we've got this drop of light.
Yeah. There you go. Different. You can see a bit of red there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I think that's the one I took the square from.
Yes.
You can hear the explosions.
Oh, there's 9 lights there. I think I just quickly, just off the top of my head, looking at them then, and it's bizarre.
It is.
Do you know, in a totally unpolluted sky, in a heavily wooded area, it's not above a city. We know we'd seen daylight images of the coastline and the holiday resorts, but this is in this mountainous region, isn't it?
This is in the sticks, Paul.
Yeah.
It's probably in the sticks.
It's a military exercise.
Maybe it's the odd small holding here and there.
It should be interesting. I mean, we might get some people doing this from overseas, from Brazil even. It'd be interesting to get their input on this.
And that's pretty much it. They then disappeared.
Okay.
Never to be seen again. And then if we can have the last video there. And this is the strobe at the very bottom. You can see the first one was in that location, but way more severe. Again, it's a bit blocky, so you don't get the full effects of it. But like I said, in the stills, the very last one definitely has 2 independent lights side by side.
Yeah.
The first still has 1. The second one has 2, which is unusual.
All right. Is that the footage in total then, Jack?
That's the footage. As you can see, it's in all contexts. It's unusual.
Highly.
It's like people I know who are pilots can't put an answer to it. They can't say it's this, it's that. I can't. and nobody I've shown can. It's just interesting. Whatever it is interesting and unusual. And I hope people enjoy watching it, and you know.
It'd be interesting to see feedback. I mean, we're going to get some experts on, like we said, who'll actually know what it is. But you know, we're getting them all the time. But I think we all know, and we're looking at it rationally. We're not saying it's something from outer space, but we do know that it's something that we can't explain. I think that's
I agree, Paul. I'm not saying it's ET or anything. I simply don't know what it is. Simple as that.
Jack, I think we've covered it. I think it very good, and thank you for coming back and going through the footage with us. Most appreciated.
No, thank you both, and thank Les for getting into a position where we could at least see it and get it out there to people.